coming to our first postdoc talk of 2025. This will be a series of talk based on the move experience of early researchers working on extracellular vesicles. Today, the hosts will be the SNEF event team. The co-hosts will be Barbara from Portugal and Jolene from Canada. So here, the invited speakers are postdocs that recently or are moved to another country, and they will present their experience in the move, and then we will have a question and answer session. So you can add the questions in the chat, and then we can read it after the three presentation. So the first speaker will be Jonathan. So I will not talk more about him because he will present itself, and he will talk about the experience of the move. Okay, go ahead, Jonathan.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Let me just put on my slides. Hi, everyone. So I am Jonathan S. Weerakkody, and people call me John, so you can call me John too. So I have an interesting story about my move. So I'm originally from Sri Lanka, this tiny island nation right under India. It's our flag over here. And I finished my high school there, and I moved for my bachelor's to the US. And I did my bachelor's in nanosystems engineering at Louisiana Tech University. And then for my master's, I got this opportunity to do an Erasmus Mundus program. And I started off my master's in Belgium, in KU Leuven, where I did bio-nanotechnology, and I was funded by the EU Commission. And then for my master's internship, I think people you know there's this M1, M2 internships at the M2 level. And for that, I was able to move to France to a place called Grenoble and to an institute called CEA or CEA, where I did my master's internship for a company. And I was able to continue my PhD in biophysics in UGR in France, in Grenoble. And then for my postdoc, I moved back to the US. And now I'm at Yale School of Medicine in New Haven, Connecticut, as a postdoctoral associate. But during my stint, I was also able to work in IMEC, so it's a big institute in Belgium, and then also in Sweden, in the Chalmers Institute of Technology in Sweden. So I have some undergraduate research, but I thought I'd start directly with my PhD research. My PhD work was on a biomimetic optoelectronic nose, which kind of spun out into a startup called Aribal Technologies. And here you can see the background, that the technical core, there's a few papers that started off this startup, which I'm not a part of anymore. So in this, I was mainly involved in kind of setting up the plasmonic sensor. So I'm an engineer by training. So I was working with clean rooms, so fabrication of these chips. But what got me into biology was trying to immobilize peptides for smell to detect odor. So we were able to kind of mimic receptors from a human nose, from a nose of a canine, stuff like that, and put it onto a chip. And then we were able to use machine learning models to be able to use these signals from this chip to identify odor. And what you see here is kind of the device, that the handheld device. And now it's kind of branched out and doing much more devices. But at this moment, like, my passion was to go into medicine, into the medical field, and try to put my engineering skills in medicine. So what am I doing now? I actually moved for love. So I met my wife, then girlfriend, in France, and she got a position as a postdoc in Yale. So this is during the pandemic. And I just wanted to be with her. So I looked for positions in Yale in particular, and I was lucky enough to get a position with Professor James E. Rothman and also Satish Ramakrishnan. And Jim won the Nobel Prize in 2013, where he was working on vesicular transport of synaptic vesicles. I don't know if people know. So synaptic vesicles are highly stringent vesicles. So their size kind of oscillates between 50 nanometers and close to a 70. They're not any bigger than that. So I was firstly recruited as an engineer to build a silicon device where they were able to see a plasma membrane on a chip, and we were able to kind of identify proteins that were on this membrane and vesicles that fuse to the membrane in a synapse and see how the mechanics work. And during this project, they wanted to kind of isolate synaptic vesicles at 50 nanometer size, and they had no technique to do this. And they wanted to build a technology where they were able to isolate synaptic vesicles in its pure form, in like synthetic synaptic vesicles, which they made in vitro for their in vitro chip. And this is when I heard about exosomes. So I was very much into vesicles, and I think vesicles in any form is how cells communicate, especially in the neurons. They use it to carry the neurotransmitters in a synapse and release them. But when I heard about extracellular vesicles, I was super excited. And this is when the paper kind of evolved. So what we started off to isolate synaptic vesicles or synthetic vesicles at a size range kind of evolved into isolating small EVs from any biofluid, where we did like develop this lipid nanoprobe. And that was it. I was into EVs. I think I'm into EVs for life now. I was super excited about the field. And then I finished this postdoc, and I got lucky enough so I wanted a translational aspect because this was more fundamental science. And I got a position as my second postdoc with David Pitt, who is a MS doctor on multiple sclerosis. And currently we're working on diagnostic using plasma EVs to diagnose multiple sclerosis, ALS, and Alzheimer's. And what's interesting is now I can apply my machine learning skills that I learned from my PhD into identifying microRNA signatures, proteomic signatures, and training like neural networks to identify disease, which is what I wanted to do from the beginning. Yeah, thank you. So that's a bit of me. I hope I didn't go over time.
Thank you so much, Jonathan, for this inspired lecture. Now I want to introduce you, Nea. I don't want to talk much, but she's original from Finland, and her research focus on EV isolation from different biofluids and brain tissue, hypoxia, and also microRNAs. So the Zoom is yours, Nea.
Okay, now. So I guess you can now hear my presentation. Yes. Okay. Here, see and hear me. So I met with EVs or exosomes already now. I realized it's 10 years from now ongoing. I did not have that kind of relationship that I will think it lasts forever. Now I think it may last forever from now on, but we have had some breakup in between. And also I am talking maybe even more about move from academia to industry and back to academia than to move from the country to another, because I am studying my postdoctoral fellowship at Johns Hopkins University in US in April. So to be the fellowship, because of the visa processing, has taken some time. So we are actually flying from Finland to US on Saturday, so the day after tomorrow. So it's very, very recent and ongoing thing at the moment. So I put my kind of history and positions here. So I have actually started as a lab technician. So I did a degree in lab technician degree, and I was not one of those people who thought that they will be a researcher or in academia or even in university at any point. But then somehow I got interested in pharmacy, and then I started my bachelor there and realized that I can do very well at the university, and the most interesting things are happening in masters. So I then continued. So my degrees in the university are from University of Eastern Finland, all of them. And I met EVs with my master's thesis already. So I contacted the professor, or back then she was not yet professor, but senior researcher, Tarja Malm, who was working on neurodegenerative diseases and especially the immune responses related to that. Those diseases. And she was just recently very excited about these exosomes and didn't know a lot about it, but wanted someone to start to build the knowledge on it. So I did my master's, and then I got stuck with this because I was so interested in this very fancy things that can do anything and you can use them for everything. And we were, of course, not knowing all the technical issues at that point yet, but so I continued with PhD directly. And after my PhD, I moved to pharma industry. So we have a Finnish company called Orion, which is actually the only pharma company in Finland that has research also in Finland. So I did kind of this sidetracked, and now I'm back coming to academia and continue with my EVs. So I have a bit of different view for my presentation, not that technical, but basically my experience from PhD is that I was building this EV line of research from scratch in a newly forming group. So once I got my master's degree done, we actually separated from the original group and formed a new group with the PI, and she was doing tenure track. So it was quite hectic, and then I was the only one working with the vesicles. So it was very important for me to have some network and learn from other people than from my own group. So I had to do very many courses like EMBL in Heidelberg to learn about extracellular vesicles, get already there some connections, and then joining ISEF conferences, from where I got contacts like Professor Kira Jenster, who is from Netherlands, from Rotterdam. And I joined also his group for 6 months to learn more and to have more support for the EV related things. Yeah, and I found that, yeah, we were also with my PI very ambitious, both of us, and we wanted to study EVs from several different places to do diagnostics things and do treatment with EVs and all these things. So I learned a lot, did a lot, but did not publish a lot because of this reason, only me working. So then at the end of my PhD, I felt that I will never come back to academia because it was kind of thinking that if you cannot publish a lot, then you are basically nothing. But now, after some time, I don't obviously think anymore that way, but I still wanted to talk a bit about leaving the academia, because sometimes you think that industry can be more stable somehow, that you will have longer contract, or that you don't need to all the time apply for funding and have 1 year at a time or even less planned ahead. So I did this in Finland. We have this foundation that is promoting new doctors to move to industry positions. So this was 2-year kind of contract there, and I moved completely to different things. So I did single cell transcriptomics, and why it was not very stable there also was that I was, of course, always focusing on neurodegeneration, and that was supposed to be also my project in the pharma, but they discontinued the whole department 3 months after I started my project. So I had to move back, and EVs helped me because I had other connections through some EV projects before, so I could move in the company and then start studying pain. But that was kind of an unexpected change, but you learned to be quite flexible again, and it was in the end very good thing because I learned also some bioinformatics during this time, which is very useful for my next steps also in my career. I think I can benefit a lot. And then I could see that academia versus industry, the project management is quite different. You have quite strict timelines, that you have clear decisions that you do this, and if the result is this, you decide if you continue or you go to look somewhere else. So I think this combined is making my future research in academia also more efficient, to really plan a bit different way than I would do before. But why I want to then come back from industry is that I still, deep down, I feel like I'm a researcher, and kind of very basic research is really my passion. And I really like the attention to the detail. So I'm still questioning myself, what is EVs? No, what are EVs, and are we really looking what we think of? And then all this methodological and technological development during the recent few years is very exciting, and I think opens a lot of new doors in this field, and I want to be part of that. But then there is another thing. I was thinking I want to do another postdoc in academia in a bigger university and in the US, because now I have my own viewpoint from very small university in Finland, that I need to have something more, to have more broad kind of understanding where I want to be later also. So I thought to do the postdoc also because I am funding it with the Finnish funders. We have maybe the best possibility to get funding for postdoc abroad. So that's why I was thinking that I will now apply for it, but then I tried actually to continue what I was doing in the pharma. So kind of not going back to EVs, but I very fast realized that you need to have this network, and otherwise you are kind of going blindly to somewhere. So that's why one thing why I decided to go back. And now my postdoc will be in Dr. Kenneth Whitworth's lab at the Johns Hopkins, and it is about testing the limits of these new technologies in single EV analysis, and really seeing if we can find a needle in the haystack from plasma to detect something from the brain. So I think quite some similarities to what Jonathan was saying about this diagnostic approach. And now main point was that I want to join a group that is really focused and has the kind of established research in EV field, so that I can have some mentoring also for that still at this point of the career. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Nea.
Thanks.
That was super insightful, actually. And I think people will have a lot of really good questions because you have so much broad experience.
Yeah, thanks.
So our next speaker is Claudia Reyes Goya. She moved from Spain to Sweden, and she's currently based at the Karolinska Institute. So I won't go on too much because I'm sure she'll introduce herself. But thanks, Claudia. I'll let you take it over.
Thank you. I will share my screen. Give me 1 second. I need to quit and reopen the app. 1 second.
So in between, remember that you can send the question via the chat, and we will read it at the end of the talk and in the question and answer session.
Yep, I'm back. It's because of okay. Can you see my screen now? Okay, sorry. So thanks, first of all, thanks for inviting me to be here today with all of you. I will talk about a little bit of myself. I'm Claudia, and I came from Canary Island, from Tenerife, and I did there my bachelor's in biology, and then I moved to Seville to do my master's in physiology and neuroscience. And then I stay there for the PhD. This is the group where I did my PhD, the cardiovascular pathophysiology group from the physiology department of the University of Seville. And we basically study arterial hypertension, NTPH oxidase, and oxidative stress. So my PhD was about demonstrate the vascular damage after treatment with a tyrosine kinase inhibitor and verified if this drug induces endothelial dysfunction through NADPH oxidase overactivation. So we took the extracellular vesicles to check and the vascular function and if they affect the function and if they involve in the oxidative stress. So that was about 2019. And in that time, I met the student network on EVs that was so good for me at the time because we couldn't find so many information. I was lost. I was begging for help when I was starting with the extracellular vesicles because there was so many publications in cell culture and in human samples, but about the rodent or rat tissue isolation was quite few. And they also have a good web page where you can looking for some useful resources. And for me, was a lighthouse in the dark. And continuing about my academic and professional background, I did a move, a short internship during 3 months in the Karolinska Institute. And then at the same time, when I was doing my PhD, I was also working as a lab technician because in Spain, there is too difficult to get money for funding the PhD projects. So when I finished that, I got a postdoc position. So I came back to Sweden again to work specifically in a project and also about another project about angiogenesis. And then I was quite far, I would say, with the extracellular vesicles. But when I returned back to Spain, to my former lab where I did my PhD, I joined in this project about characterizing extracellular vesicles extracted from the plasma of animals fed with a diet enriched with olive oil, 2 different olive oils. So I characterized them through the electron microscopy. Also, there was a huge challenge characterizing them by flow cytometry. I don't know if you ever have done it before, but this crazy. And we also incubate cells with the EVs and check the ROS production. So actually, this year we finally published our first manuscript in extracellular vesicles and how circulating extracellular vesicles from those animals fed with the olive oil can improve the ROS production. To improve the situation here in an hypertensive phenotype cells. So then I also, like other colleagues here, I move for love and also for love to science. So I came back to Sweden, and here right now I'm at the molecular and epidemiological studies of ascending aortic aneurysm research group from Hannah Björk. So I think they chose me also because I have been working with extracellular vesicles before, because they would like to for me to help them to include the EVs study in their models. So not model because they are working with a cohort with patients. So the idea now is to study in the ascending aortic aneurysm in different bicuspid aortic valve and tricuspid aortic valve patients and check what happened with the extracellular vesicles with them. And about my experience moving, sometimes we think about decisions, there are some pros and cons, and if I go or not. There are different situations, of course, but I like to see life more like that. Sometimes you travel alone, sometimes you have a partner, or you have to take care of someone else. So life is a lot of decisions, but I would obviously recommend, from my perspective, go abroad, explore, collaborate, and meet new people, and then you always can go back home. So that's it for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Claudia. Very interesting move. I have a lot of questions for you. But first, I will proceed with the audience if they have some answer for the speakers about them experience. No?
Hi, I have a question.
Okay,
I'm
go
Hong
ahead.
from the University of Delaware in the US, so I'm quite near Johns Hopkins if you are coming in. So you all seem to be moving around across countries, and I would like to have that kind of opportunity either during my PhD or after that. But how do you find these opportunities and find funding to support like your move? I guess because you're all moving for postdoc, but do you know of any other opportunities for PhD students, for example, and if to convince your advisor? Well, that's another story, but maybe just find opportunities for now.
Should I chime in?
Yeah, sure.
Hi, Hong. So in my experience, like it's back in the US now, funding is starting to get tough with the new administration. I think the whole world knows what's happening in the US right now. So NIH right now it's blocked. So even our PIs don't know if the study sessions for the NIH grants would be open. They keep getting postponed. But in general, so this is like a circumstance that nobody expected, right? But in general, in the US, especially in these big universities like Yale, Harvard, MIT, what I see for PhDs is you need, like, I tried when I was doing my undergrad to get a PhD position here too, because I did my undergrad in the US, in Louisiana. It was very difficult to find funding. But what I've seen, like the way around it is you can do a postgrad. So you can reach out to a lab in the US after your undergrad to do a postgrad for like a year or two. So especially in Yale, they do offer money for this. So they will pay you to come do, and they have many positions open like this to train postgrads. And after you do a year or two, you'll be joined to a lab in these universities like Yale, Harvard, MIT. And then through the lab and through your PI, you can put in an application for a PhD in that university. So a postgrad is usually an year or two, and then you can put in an application for a PhD, and your PI would support you. And through his support, when during the selection of PhD students in his department, if he's part of the department or department head, that goes a long way. So like applying from outside for a PhD is much harder. So it's better to know people, especially in these large universities. And this is something I didn't know when I was doing my undergrad. So it's just something I want to tell like everybody. Even if you want to travel from out of country to the US, I think you can come in on F1 visa as a postgrad. So reach out to PIs, reach out to departments. So go through the department website. You'll have different people working on different projects, whichever excites you. Email them directly, ask for a postgrad position, because it's harder when you ask for a PhD position because it's the decision of the university to accept you to the program or not in the US. But ask for a postgrad position, work with them for 1 year, publish a paper or be part of a paper that they publish, and then you can apply for a PhD using that paper itself. In Europe, I think it's much easier to get a PhD position, but once again, you have these scholarships, especially in France. They're in France now, where I did my PhD, they're attracting a lot of international students. They want international students to come in, and they have a huge English PhD programs now where all the courses are in English, so you wouldn't not have to learn French, but it'll be nice to know French. So you'd also learn another language, but you don't have to use French to do your PhD, which I didn't use French to do my PhD. And it's similar. So if you reach out to a PI for a PhD, you can directly reach out in Europe, at least in France. You can reach out to someone for a PhD, and your PI would work with you to get a grant for your PhD in Europe, at least in France, as far as I know. But it doesn't work the same way here in the US.
Yeah, I can maybe add that for the EU, there are now, so this doesn't help for the US, but if you are doing PhD already in EU, there is now this MOVE organization that is promoting the movement of EV researchers from lab to another and funding it also for short terms. So that could be for someone, if someone is in Europe and interested in that, but I don't know if in US you would have any kind of small foundations or something like that that could maybe promote short visits outside US. This is how I funded my 6 months in the Netherlands during my PhD. So I had these private small foundations from but they were Finnish ones, so they were only for Finnish people. But I think maybe there could be this kind of private foundations that could give some smaller grants for movement to like short-term scholarships. Yeah.
I would like also add that there is always the Erasmus Plus programs that you can also apply, and you can do short internship like I did, for example. I was in Spain, and then I applied there to coming here to Sweden for 3 months, and was kind of enough to know people, know new PIs and so on. So that's another possibility.
Just to quickly add to Claudia's great point about Erasmus Plus, but Erasmus Plus, if you're not in Europe, you have a thing called Erasmus Mundus. So they have this, it considers the entire world.
Yeah.
So if you're in Asia, it's a little more competitive, but that's a great option for, yeah, I agree.
Sarah,
Sarah?
go ahead. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us. I would like to ask each one of you, what was like the hardest thing from moving to a PhD, from a PhD to a postdoc, and what was like the easiest thing? Because you all went through like several countries, some might have been like visa related or even research, but what do you consider was like your biggest struggle, and how did you like overcome that? And like the easiest that you're kind of like, yeah, this was easy, no struggle there. Thank you.
I can maybe start. So the hardest struggle was, well, I didn't think about the industry position that long. I just tried if it happens, and it happened. But now thinking about the academic postdoc to move outside, it was the hardest thing was to decide where and where, kind of, because if you don't have, if limits are that EV research labs, it's kind of quite wide. So I had to make some kind of exclusion criteria or some sort. So the decision to actually decide something that you think that is really giving you what you need, and also maybe I wanted to have something that I already know about, so I'm not totally completely starting over when I start, so that I can really catch up very fast and then kind of focus on learning new things on top of that. So that was the maybe most difficult part, to decide what is the right place for it. Yeah.
I can go answer. For me, it was not in that case which country should I choose. Was more about what was the lack of my CV that I need to boost, I would say. And for me, I did one postdoc first in one group that we already have a collaboration before. And that was basically because of we got the collaboration and the application deadline was super quick and fast. So I didn't have that much time to think about it. But of course, I learned so much, a lot of a bunch of techniques and so on. But my second postdoc, I wanted to be much more attached to my CV, much more specific. That's why I applied into a cardiovascular group. That's the difference, because the first one was more into the hypoxia related pathway and so on, and was in the eye related disease. And this one, the second one, was in the cardiovascular field. And also aiming to go with the extracellular vesicles because I like them. And so it's a balance between the lack of your CV or what do you want to be in the future. Also, you need, as Nea was saying, you need to publish. So this is one thing you have to consider when you look for a postdoc, because you can go to a group where they don't publish a lot or there are few people there. So you have to make a lot of pros and cons before applying, I would say.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, publish or perish, right? This thing that they say. Yeah, that's a great point. Like, make sure you guys publish where postdoc or PhD, regardless, like talk to your PIs, at least get a paper out. It's important. In my case, I feel like the hardest thing for me completely outside of academia was the visa process, especially in the US. And especially coming from a country like Sri Lanka. It's not easy for a visa process. And since I had already come to the US for my undergrad and left to Europe, in Europe, it was such a breeze, the visa process and getting a residency. I think I got it within a day or two when I moved to Belgium. Here, I'm going on like 2-3 years now and I'm still working on it. So yeah, so it's just the immigration policies. It's ridiculous. It's the stress on top of what you're doing. So on top of the work that you have, stress as a postdoc is high. You have a family stress, and now you have also visa stress, which is adding to everything. Yeah, but the easiest thing is, at least for my postdoc, is to come back to my then girlfriend and now wife. I think you need some strong support system when you're doing research, because like I know everyone knows there's a lot of failures. It's more failures than there is success. So I'm just happy I'm not alone anymore. I have someone to come and complain to about the day and get it all out, and then come back the next day and try again. Yeah.
Very good point, because this is the first time I'm not doing long distance work or relationship when we move together to US. Yeah.
Does anyone have a question?
Sorry, Barbara,
not-
can I just follow up on something that Jonathan said? Because
course.
you said that we should publish, but I started my postdoc without publishing, and I come from the UK, and the UK is very hard to publish during your PhD because you have to do your PhD in 4 years. So most people in the UK do not publish during their PhD. They always publish like before or during that time. Do you think that was like a really crucial thing? I know that people should have, it's easier to make it like more hireable, but do you think that is a struggle that most people will find, or not really? Because it's quite scary, especially like coming from the UK, like, oh, you need to publish, and pretty much nobody that I know, like 1 or 2 people, were able to publish during their PhD. We still were able to go to postdocs. So do you think that also comes from the fact that maybe it was the UK and people might be aware of these? Or like, what importance do you think really a publication has if you can show your skills through like conferences and work in other presentations and stuff like that? Thank you. That's my question. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah, for the question. Yeah, you're right. Like my wife is a postdoc too, and she got like she didn't publish in the PhD and she got a postdoc. So it's not unheard of, right? You of course you can show your skills. You have conferences that you attend. Yeah, it's not unheard of. Like, but in my case, papers played a big role, or I wouldn't have gone to that, at least in my case. This is particular to me. And I think, like you're right, there are certain labs that they want to publish this one big paper, which might take 5, 6, 7 years that you're doing. And this is more common now, I think, especially in these large universities. Yeah, like you're absolutely right. But I think, like, if you want to stay in academia, right? If you want to stay in academia, so the next step for me after a postdoc is I'm trying to look for faculty positions. So I want to stay in academia, I want to look for faculty positions. When it comes to this, you definitely need a paper, or at least a paper in bioarchive. So I do know a friend who applied for faculty position. He had no papers during his postdoc, but he did have one paper during his PhD, and he had a paper in bioarchive, and he got a position in New York. So I think if you're going to faculty position, the only way they gauge your productivity is through publications, peer-reviewed publications. It doesn't have to be a good journal, but peer-reviewed publications, at least if it's not peer-reviewed, at least submitted to bioarchive and is pending. Because some journals take like years to publish. You have to go through your review process. Yeah, if you decide to go to faculty positions, I think, yeah, then it becomes more crucial.
Yeah, I can also add that I want to fight against it, publish or perish, because I hate that people publish something that they really didn't look deep enough into. And maybe in EV field, that is one thing why I like it, is that because at least part of it is very technical oriented. So I feel like you get a bit of things forgiven because you are focusing on something really detailed, and even if it's not published. For me, I did not have any original papers when I defended my thesis. And some people told me it's a bad idea because then I don't have anything kind of. But the thing is also that most of the projects start to get published later. So now I already have some. So I still continue to work and finish them, even if I had my PhD done. So maybe it's about also showing the activity in the field, so that I can now show that I have been actively publishing. And that's why I also in industry position, I try to do some reanalysis paper, just something that I can publish to show that I'm still kind of in the research and not having a gap. Because also many people told me that if you go to industry, you never come back to academia, that you are not taken back to academia, but it's not the case also. So, but I completely agree that especially then later steps after postdoc, it becomes hard. And I have some colleagues who have published several papers, but still it was not enough for them to get any kind of funding to continue as forming their own group. Or so that is maybe the most competitive thing then to go forward.
I would like to add, like Jonathan said, I think it's a plus if you have publications from your backpack, but also I know people that they don't have it during their PhD, and they also obtain a postdoc position. So there are also ways to start a postdoc, because also you can contact someone and they can pay you for the travel, and you can do some trial period or something like that, and you can show your abilities, or they want you to present your work. I mean, during the interviews and so on, this happened to me. So it's not only publishing that matters, it's also the way you can show your abilities when you are looking for a postdoc. Is all the abilities you gain during the PhD, I would say.
Yeah, I have a question more for Jonathan and Claudia regarding of other aspect in the move. Because I have a similar one to you guys. How is the weather change between your original countries and the current one? Because I moved from Chile to Belgium and was complicated first year, but I think for you as well. So how you manage that? Because also, I mean, it's not the big deal, but it can be affect our improving our jobs. So yeah.
Definitely. I can feel you because I came from Canary Island. That's why I put the picture of my presentation, and was not only like the Sweden with all the greens and the sunny weather. Here there is also very gray and hard winter time. So the weather also is important, but also is very important the network you do, because in this. I would say from here, from Sweden, that to meet people is very important, because to have friends and go out, and also it's very useful during the winter time, because the weather is so rough and then you need something to do, not only science. So it's very important, of course, but I think at the end you will adapt anyway. And for me, I've been here in different periods, summer, autumn times, and it doesn't matter for me. But of course, it's something you can consider when you when you look at postdoc, of course.
That's such a great question, because it brought back so many memories. It kind of, yeah. So I'm from Sri Lanka. It's very warm there. It's warm and humid. And going to Belgium this is something I wasn't thinking about back then. And going to Belgium was rough. It was gloomy all the time. I barely saw the sun. But like Claudia said, I had a good group of friends back then. We had a really tight-knit group of friends. We used to go out all the time, and they made me feel better. And I realized that I had to take vitamin D pills during this year, because I was starting to feel depressed. And this is something that people don't talk about. So I'm glad you brought this up. So please take your vitamins. If you do, this is great. It helps. And then I think Grenoble, France was much better, where you saw the sun more often. And now in New Haven, it's much better too. And then you get used to the cold. But what happens is, then when you go back to Sri Lanka now, you're a mess, because you sweat all the time. You can't handle the warmth like you used to anymore. So it's crazy. So I'm waiting, because when you go back to Chile, I think you'll need all your AC units turned on all the time. But, yeah.
Yeah, I can understand both point of view. So yeah, it's
I
from my
would
point of
not
view.
move
Yeah, you are in the
from
same.
warmth. I would not move out from the warmth.
Yeah.
I didn't select based on weather also, really.
Yeah, for me, I didn't think on that when I moved, so I here. So yeah, I know. Another question.
I have a question. So I only know the reality of Portugal, but at this moment, do you have permanent positions? And looking ahead, do you see yourself staying in academia, or do you consider a transition to industry or not?
This is a very good question. I think it also happened with many friends that work on science as well. When they finish their PhD, they want to quit science. They hate science, because you work under so much stress much more the last year, because you want to finish and you want to defend as soon as possible and forget everything. Yeah, so I think it's a very good question, because right now, for example, I don't have a permanent position. Right now, I will be here, I think, for 4 years, but of course, aiming to continue in academia. But of course, when I did my first postdoc, I didn't thought about quitting science. I was just like a horse going straightforward on science, and I forget about myself a little bit, and then I have a gap on my career a little bit to think about what I really want, and I really like science, and then that's why I continue doing a postdoc. But I was also thinking about to move to industry as well. But for me, it was a second option. Well, for me, I still wanted to continue in academia. but it's something important that you have to think about it. But as Nea said, the rumors always say that if you leave academia, you cannot come back, or and if you go to industry, that's all you can do, and you cannot come back to academia anymore because you are nothing. At least those are the rumors that we hear in Spain. So it's something that you really need to think about it, because it's not a perfect position anywhere. I mean, either industry, they have their benefits, their pros and cons, and also in academia. So for me, I feel I've never worked in industry, but I think I feel more free in academia because I like the way to follow a project, and it's not more based in numbers. I would say if it's worth it or not, then we should stop working in a specific project. I don't know if I'm explaining well. So I don't know, it's very personal, but for me, I prefer academia.
Yeah, I can go next. This is something I'm really thinking about right now. I'm in this kind of transition from postdoc. It's my second postdoc now, and the next step is probably faculty. So this is what I'm really thinking about right now, me and my wife. So we are both postdocs. We are both thinking about it. And I think I like what the thing that Claudia showed in her presentation with these rocks, the balance. So when I moved for my PhD, I was alone. I made the decisions. When I moved for my postdoc, I was also alone. But now I have a wife and a child. I have a baby boy now. So I think the decisions are a little more, it's a little different now, because there are people that rely on me. I have to think about the finances. I have to think about many different things. So I don't know if faculty that doesn't work out, maybe I would go to industry just because of having to support my family, right? But what I really love is why I love research is, you get so many failures when you do research, you get very disheartened. But when you do see something work, the high that you get from your experiments working, it's uncomparable. In my, like, wow, when it works, you just feel so good. And I kind of live for that moment in research, and I've had only a few, but it's been worth. And I agree with Claudia with this. After I finished my PhD, I had this disillusionment with academia, where you like, oh, publishing is publish, perish. You have to really push for publications where you're not sure about the results, and are what people publish really true? You have this, like, like, what's really true, what's not. I think especially true in EV and the standardization of EV. This is why it's so important, right? And yeah, I was disillusioned. It took me like COVID lockdown, and I was without a job for like a year, and I really thought about it, and I want to give it a try. Maybe the new generation could change this, and we can be really robust. And but then as you go on, you realize you're the cog in the system. The system just works, and you are just a fly, insignificant detail in this big system. So I don't know. So this is all up in the air. Let's see what happens.
One problem for very research-oriented thinking is that you maybe kind of fell in love with your topic or your very niche thing. And even when you do something great, let's say you are in industry or in research in a company, and then you get something to work and you are over top of the moon, and then they tell you that that's good, but we are not going to continue with this. So then you need to drop it and go on further because of some business decision. So that may be some kind of downside of it if you're very enthusiastic about your things. So yeah, that is one pro for academia, for me at least, that it doesn't always need to be having business potential now, but most probably it will help in the long term to understand basic research and basic biology and so on.
Thank you so much. Yeah, what you said makes me totally sense, because I really love science, but I want stability and a family. And what I think it's so international experience is a super important thing in academia. And sometimes I think that I cannot have a family, a house, and be near to my parents, and also be international and academia. And yeah, it's a lot of stuff. But yeah, thank you.
Another question from the audience? No. Okay. So, yeah, I think was a very great session, a talk between our experiences of the move. In the future, we will have more of that type of talks, but in different situations. But yeah, I mean, for me, it was great, and also to know how manage the weather. So thank you so much, guys, Jonathan, Claudia, and Nea, for accept our invitation, and we'll see in the future. And also, I know Barbara and Jolene, if they want to say something.
It was very inspiring. So thank you so much for sharing your experience with us.
Yeah, thank you guys. It was awesome.
Thank you guys.
Thanks to you.
For inviting us. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for the invitation. Yes, that's nice.
If anyone wants to contact me directly for any question, whatever, I'm here to help.
Yeah, same here. Like I have a LinkedIn, so you guys can
Yeah, me
send
too.
me and any
Yeah.
questions you have.
Same.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a great
Take
day.
care.
Thank
Have a
you.
nice day,
Have a nice week.
evening.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.